If you are in early sobriety, I know it probably feels like you have everything to lose, but ultimately you have everything to gain. I know how scary it is. You don't know where to go, what to do, who to turn to. I'm going to offer you some things that no one else talks about so that you can avoid pitfalls that I fell into over and over when I first realized I needed to quit alcohol once and for all back in 2016. If you don't know me, I am Clark, and welcome to The Sober Web. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I battled alcoholism for 13 years from the age of 24 to 37. I tried a number of times to get sober and stay sober for good, but I had relapses because I had no one who could point out pitfalls that I needed to be aware of. Now, the first thing that I had no idea about when I first started trying to get sober was the tricky mind. It's this little part of you that even when you're getting sober, something in the back of your mind tells you that you don't have to give it up for good. You can control it at some point, that maybe you can try just one more time. Maybe if you switch to beer from liquor, or maybe if you just try wine this time, or you only have one once in a while. That's this little insidious kind of shadow in you that makes you want to believe that you can actually control it. So please be aware of that. It will catch you kind of unawares at the most inopportune times when you think that you've got the addiction or the alcohol licked, whatever it is. But don't let that little voice kind of tempt you to try a sip or a drink. And part of that goes into being aware of being overconfident. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be confident in your sobriety. You should have confidence in the strength and resilience that it has taken for you to get to wherever you are right now. But don't be overconfident. Don't let that confidence turn into kind of ego battle where you kind of believe that you could maybe give it a go or try it again. Because it's when we think that we've got it all figured out that we kind of let our guard down, or we stop going to meetings, or we stop doing whatever work and tools we've been using to stay sober because we don't think that we need them anymore. That is when we kind of end up listening to the tricky mind, thinking that we can give it a go, and end up relapsing and feeling like we have to start all over, or we'll never actually beat the addiction ever. But you can totally beat it. I believe in you. I know it's possible. And I've talked about this before. I just kind of alluded to it a little bit, but there's a bit of a high in early sobriety in the first week, 2 weeks, 3 months, even the first year, where you're kind of just floating because you have found strength and resilience and courage to walk away from an addiction or something that was holding you back, and you have every right to feel so good about yourself, and you should. But my friend, you got to be aware that the high, some people also call it the pink cloud, it will dissipate in time. Sobriety, life in general, is up and down. There's highs and lows. That's totally normal. And while in the throes of addiction, we probably operate on this really, really high kind of energy plane, or manic plane, or impulsive, obsessive plane, when you quit, you can kind of bottom out and you hit this depression eventually, and this kind of woe is me, and am I going to feel like crap forever, and am I ever going to not think about maybe wanting to give it another go or try it again. But if you just stick with it, if you keep going, if you don't give into those voices that make you think that going back to the addiction is going to make your life easier or take away the pain or the emotions, you will eventually even out, and you'll find a more balanced place in life where you kind of just handle everything in a much more emotionally aware place. Another thing to be aware of in early sobriety is your pride. Do not let your pride run your life. Do not let it rule your early sobriety. I know that the idea of labeling your relationship with alcohol, or calling yourself an alcoholic, calling yourself an addict, I know that can be kind of a scary notion, or even having to go to a place like AA or NA, or have to go to rehab or a detox center. That takes a lot of courage and humility to do those things. And I think oftentimes in early sobriety, we feel like, one, we don't want to face the fact that maybe there's a problem, which is our ego and our pride getting in the way, because there is no shame in having a problem. We also, oftentimes, because we want to hide the fact that maybe we have a problem, we don't ask others for help. We don't talk about it with others in the hopes of maybe finding an ally or finding a support system that actually gets what we're going through, or understands who we are, or where we've been, but where we'd like to go. And so ultimately, your pride and your ego can really hold back your sobriety and can really hinder your early sobriety and actually set you up for hard times, because you just simply don't reach out to people that might understand. You don't go to places that can actually help you or support you. So just be aware of your pride, be aware of your ego, put them in check, and just ask for help. I hope that makes sense. Hit the like button if so. And also leave a comment about your experience with all of this. Have you struggled with pride getting in the way of your sobriety? Have you found that your pride or inability to ask for help has held you back? Leave a comment. let me know. And actually, the next thing has so much to do with that. I already talked about it, but don't be ashamed of having a problem. Don't be ashamed of being an alcoholic. Don't be ashamed of being an addict. There's actually a lot of power in owning those terms and owning those labels. I know there's so much stigma around it all, but the more that we own it, the less stigmatized it all becomes. I did battle with guilt and shame around all of it. I was embarrassed about it, but now I have embraced it so much that it's kind of like a suit of armor. Like nothing can really hurt me. The more that we own our problems, the less things can actually hurt us in life. There's so much power in not being ashamed about having an addiction or being an alcoholic. Ultimately, there's nothing wrong with you. You're a human in training. You're a human trying to become a better version of yourself. So there's no shame in any of it. Don't let your shame or guilt kind of hinder your early sobriety. Now, another really important thing to be aware of is your social life when you are in early sobriety, when you're newly sober. Too much too soon can definitely be a detriment. It can definitely set you up for failure. So it's okay to say no to friends and family about parties. It's okay to say no to yourself. That's actually probably more important than anything is no. I don't need to go out on a Friday night. No, I don't need to go to the bar with my friends. No, I don't have to say yes if they ask me to drink. No, I don't have to hide the fact that I have struggles with alcohol around my friends and my family. If they love me, they will embrace it and they will support that. But take a break from social life. Take a break from being around people that drink. If you are able to set boundaries for yourself and set boundaries with others, create a safe place for yourself that will facilitate a good support system for your sobriety so that you are not tempted. Because I know that in early sobriety, the smell of it can be tantalizing. Watching people drink, we can kind of become envious of the fact that they get to enjoy it and we don't. And if you really want to stay sober and you want to quit alcohol or the addiction for good, just don't put yourself in those situations until you're truly ready for it. Which actually leads me to my next tool for early sobriety is remember your why. Establish your why. Not why did I struggle with alcohol or addiction or alcoholism for long, but why do I want to get sober? Why do I want to stay sober? You have to find some internal motivation that will get you through the hard times, that will get you through those moments where maybe you have to go to a party or a wedding or a place that will have alcohol. You have to have that internal motivation, that why established for when life gets really, really hard, because even in the first few months, even in the first year, life is not going to change. There are so many people that probably got sober right up to 2020 when COVID hit, and then we're all isolated and no one can go to meetings and no one can go to their support systems that they've been using to stay sober. And I know that so many people relapsed during that time because it was a scary time. There was so much fear, but maybe the whys weren't established. And if you can find your why for why you're doing what you're doing or why you're considering getting sober, that will keep you focused even through the hardest of times when temptation is everywhere, or you're feeling weak, or you're feeling scared, or you're feeling like you want to just drink again or use again because it seems like it's easier, even though it will not make your life easier. And even though sobriety is hard, it will make your life easier in the long run if you just keep going. Another interesting thing that can help you through early sobriety, sometimes you have to be selfish in order to be selfless. The fact is, if you don't stay sober, you're not doing anyone any good. You're doing yourself a disservice, you're doing your family a disservice, you're doing your children a disservice, because while you're stuck in addiction, you'll never fully be able to step into who you're meant to be for yourself and for them. And so in order to take care of your family or take care of yourself or take care of anyone, you have to put your sobriety first. If you've realized alcohol or drugs or an addiction are a detriment to your life, your sobriety is paramount to your life and what it is that you want to do, even if you don't know what do you want to do or who you want to be or where your life is going. So sometimes you have to put your sobriety before your friendships. You don't have to put your sobriety before your family per se, but you do need to do what you have to do to stay sober, because ultimately who you become through your sobriety is such a better version and such a better support for your family than the person prior who was stuck in addiction or stuck with the alcohol. So do what you have to do, because you can support your sobriety and support your family at the same time. And of course, hopefully your partners, your children, they all support the fact that you're just trying to make yourself better and you're trying to improve your life. And ultimately, if you have children, you're setting an amazing example for your children. If you don't have children, you're setting an amazing example for your family, maybe for siblings, even for friends. It's a really powerful thing that you're doing beyond just getting sober for yourself. It can really impact so many people's lives. Another thing that I wish someone would have shared with me when I first got sober is that There's not one way or road to recovery. Sadly, within the recovery world, there's a lot of stigma around how do you recover, or what's an alcoholic, or once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. But how you get sober, stay sober, how you recover, how you do the healing work, that's based on whatever you want. There's so many ways to do it. There's Reddit groups, there's Facebook groups, there's obviously YouTube. You can use a therapist, go to rehab, use self-help books, go to AA, use the big book, use part of the step process, create your own step process. There's just so many ways of doing it because your journey to and through addiction is different than mine. Therefore, your journey into sobriety and through recovery and becoming recovered will be different than mine. You don't have to go the same path as someone else just because maybe they're an old timer or they're jaded or they've done their journey a different way or they think that a specific way is the only way. So just be aware of, honestly, the stigma within the recovery world that some people will leave a bad taste in your mouth. But go with your gut and what works for you and your story, because I bet somewhere inside of you there's a voice telling you what's the right way and what's the wrong way for you based on your story. And finally, the final tip, the most important tip, which is going to be really counterintuitive. Don't be afraid of a relapse. I think a lot of times people are so afraid of relapsing that they almost manifest it to happen. It's like we become so obsessive and so scared of going back to old ways that we somehow end up self-sabotaging. Maybe we don't think that we deserve sobriety. Maybe we don't think that we're good enough to beat the addiction or we're strong enough to beat the addiction, so we go back to old ways because that's what we know. We think we don't deserve better. But I want you to know, while we obviously want to avoid relapses, they do happen. Instead of looking at a relapse as a bad thing or being afraid of a relapse, what if you look at it as a learning opportunity? Someone once said, and I thought this was brilliant, a relapse is simply a lapse in judgment. It doesn't mean that all the sober time is a complete waste of time and you have to start all over, but it's a great opportunity to learn why you relapsed, what happened that made you think you could drink or use or give into the addiction again, and how can you prevent that from happening again in the future. It's like, you fall off the horse, but get back up, dust yourself off, and get back on the horse. Because a relapse does not have to define the rest of your sobriety or your relationship with alcohol or drugs or anything like that. And they happen, and it's okay. Just put your pride to the side, put your fear to the side, learn from it, and just get back at it. So there you have it, my friends. Some early sobriety tips for those that are newly sober. I hope that you'll hit the like button if you found this video valuable. Even more than that, I hope that you'll share this video. You believe that it could help others. And then, as always, I hope that you'll consider subscribing to my channel. And after you hit the subscribe button, I hope that you'll hit the bell. That way you're notified when I release a video every single week. Until I see you again, if you want to continue to change your perspective around addiction and you want to understand how it can actually improve your life and make you a better person, check out this video right here, because I talk about how alcoholism actually un-effed my life. Until I see you again, much love and much life, my friend. I'm Clark with the Sober Web, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Talk soon. Bye.